Simon, I would love to get your insight regarding the benefits of meditation in sports.
Yeah, thanks to Breeze. And again, it's a pleasure to be here. Look, I think when we start talking about meditation, I've got to start by saying there's a lot of misinformation about what meditation is and what isn't. And it's so amazing that people are meditating. But I think for me, I had to get over so many blocks and barriers, and it needed to be broken down really simply for me, because when I first started, meditation was sort of this mystical art, right? It was like, when people meditate, they leave their body, it's like this transcendent practice. And that was 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And I think, what I'd love to do is talk about how meditation is just a really practical, it's like brushing your teeth. It's no more complicated or simple than brushing your teeth. Once you know how to brush your teeth, you don't have to try and brush your teeth. You just brush your teeth. If you don't brush your teeth are going to fall out. If I don't meditate, I turn into a crazy person, right? Like, it's literally like that. The central part of any well-being routine should be something like a meditation practice, and I'll explain why and how it relates to sport as well, because it relates to everything. So the first thing that meditation is it's a really practical, simple way of maintaining well-being. And I'll start with a quote that I learned very early on, which was, "The source of all a man's problems are his inability to sit in a room on his own doing nothing for 20 minutes." Right? We are horrendous at sitting still. It's so hard to sit still, right? Just to be with this person. The next thing to say about meditation is, like I say to people, what's the most important relationship that you have? And they go, my wife, my kids. And that's great and noble. But what about our relationship to ourselves? Right? I have to spend every single minute of every single day with myself. So as my good meditation teacher used to say, the very least, you want to be a good friend to yourself. And you've got to be able to spend some time with yourself. And so I like to think of meditation as, this is me building my relationship with myself. Right? This is me learning to be with this crazy mind that seems to be like a drunk monkey all the time. This desire to win and destroy, and, this competitive nature that's within me somewhere. I've got a massive ego. I have to sit with that every day. And meditation is kind of like this commitment to going, I'm going to spend some time on my own, and I'm going to be with the person that I spend all of my life with. Because the number one rule of life, if you have a crap relationship with yourself, you're going to have a crap life. Right? We have to have a good relationship with ourselves. And most of us are running around beating the crap out of ourselves with a big stick. We've got our mum and our dad's voices in our heads. One saying nice things, the other one saying not so nice things. We've got the voice of our teachers. And when we sit down to meditate, we go, oh shit, it's noisy in here, right? And so then the next thing to know is meditation is sitting down and being with yourself, and it's paying attention to this mind, body, emotions, thoughts. So I like to think that the mind, or what I have, there's a few things that make up me. Thoughts here, emotions, sensations. So emotions are like sadness, happiness, anger, guilt, shame. Then I've got sensations, which is like hunger, like itches, like you get itching, and there's sensations. And then I've got my capacity to pay attention. And I think the step one of meditation is to realize that there's a part of that I am. I'm the one who watches all that. I'm not my thoughts. I'm not my emotions. I'm not my sensations. I am the being that's watching all that shit go down. And then what that does is, that is meditation right there. We literally could stop the video, because I'm 12, 15 years deep into this. And I know people who've been meditating for 50 years. We know a lady who went and lived in a cave for 3 years. That's all she did. You just sit and you watch. But what we tend to do is we tend to latch on to the thoughts, especially the ones we believe. And then we get lost. Then we have to come back. And then we get lost and we have to come back. And it's a wrestle. Meditation is a wrestle. Now, for those who are listening who've never meditated, when you first sit down, it's like that drawer. You know that the drawer used to shove things in. You know, you get those old
Yeah.
letters you don't want to look at and like, shit, oh, what does this do? Put it in the drawer, put it in the drawer.
Mm.
Most of us, when we sit down for the first time, it's like opening that drawer up, right? That's what it's like. This mind that we have. My wife has a fantastic saying, our minds are the junkyards of other people's ideas. Everything you've ever been told you are, whose voice is the voice of criticism, everything you've ever been told lives inside your mind because we just absorb it. And so it's very difficult to start a meditation practice because it's like turning the light on in a room that you've not been in for a really long time. It's dusty, there's rats in there, there's piles of stuff you haven't sorted out. And that's why people turn the light on, they sit down, they go, this is really uncomfortable. And guess what they do? They turn the light back off again. And they don't go in that room again because to be with ourselves is really uncomfortable. And it's only uncomfortable because we don't do it. My wife and I have spent a lot of time in the East, and in the East, children, they spend time meditating. It's a practice you get taught, like brushing your teeth, like going to sleep, like washing your clothes. Most of us don't pay attention to ourselves. We're all very external. We focus outside of ourselves and we forget that there's a whole inner world happening. So breaking this down simply, meditation is sitting and paying attention to yourself. And you can use guided meditations to do that. Now, the reason it's so powerful, and I'm going to get on to some really simple stuff that makes it easier, because what you want to do when you open up the drawer is you want to know how to deal with what's going on in there. Meditation is the reason it's so powerful is because that voice in your head wants your attention, right? It wants to be paid attention to. And I don't know if anyone has ever done this. Don't think. Stop thinking, stop thinking. God, stop thinking. Anyone who has anxiety, that's the journey of anxiety. Right now, the problem with that is, to breeze, don't think about a pink elephant. Don't think about one, mate. Don't think about a pink elephant. Don't think about the pink elephant. Don't think about the pink elephant. Don't think about the pink elephant. Right? It's very difficult to not think about the thing you're telling yourself not to think about. And so we've got a rule in meditation, which is, meditation is not trying to stop thought. Nothing will send you crazier than trying to stop your own thinking. Minds, they think. That's just what they do. Hearts beat. Arms move like arms do. It's as insane as trying to stop your own heartbeat as trying to stop your mind think. It's the natural order of things. So a lot of people sit down, they get scared because it's busy and it's uncomfortable and they've got emotions in there. I mean, if you've been repressing anger for a really long time, then you go sit down, it can be really intense. Bodies feel, minds think, and so meditation is letting that all be. We don't try and change it. We let the mind be a mind. Or as my teacher always said, if your mind spoke French, it wouldn't bother you so much, right? And so I always just think, oh, it's just a drunk monkey that lives inside my skull. It's not who I am, and I just let it get on with it. The more you let it get on with it, the more it can quieten down, but it's important not to try to, because don't think about the pink elephant, right? So the reason we want to meditate is because we have to create a good relationship with ourselves. And I'll relate that to sport in a bit. The reason people don't is because it's busy and we've never done it and it's uncomfortable. And what are thoughts? Did you learn that at school? I didn't. Right, I learned trigonometry. I didn't learn about anger, sadness, guilt, shame, thoughts, fear. Right, I didn't learn about any of that sort of stuff. So you're going into the unknown. Most of us are more comfortable watching Chelsea Football Club than we are watching our own minds, right? Because we know the pitch, the game, we know the players, but do you know the nature of your own thoughts, right? This is the commitment of meditation. This is why it's so powerful, because we're walking around ignorant and unaware of what makes us who we are. And there's some really good frameworks: thoughts, emotions, sensations. Thoughts, that's noise in your head. Emotions, the feelings. sensations, that's your bodily stuff.
Mm.
And we sit down and we watch those, right? We just watch them. And that's a practice, right? And I've got to be honest, it's good to get guided at times because, you know, it's really challenging just to sit on your own. It's like being in space. There's not, you know, it's very difficult. One of the reasons that why it's important for those that are playing sports is I learned recently that Lionel Messi stands still more than anyone else on the football field. He runs as slow as anybody's ever run, and he stands still more than anybody else, right? And he lets the game open up and he reads the game. It's very difficult to understand anything if you're in it all the time, right? Or as my teacher used to say, you can't see the room if you're looking at the table, and he used to put my head on the table.
Yeah.
Meditation trains us to have a broader view. It trains us to slow down, and it trains us to be more aware. Everybody on this podcast listening has probably had that game where they've played really well. You know, that game where you're in the zone and time, what do they say? Time stands still. It moves slower than normal. It's like I could see what was going to happen, right? This is the zone. This is what everybody's after in sport, right? If you could if you could make zone juice, go and start a business. Zone juice, that's what we all want, right? That's why everyone's smashing booze and going for all of the zone juice. Right, just hang on. I'll just have a little cup of zone juice. Hang on. We all want to be in the zone. Call it love, call it success, whatever it might be. But what we want all the time is space to be able to see properly. Think about those of you that are in relationships or marriages, or you have children. Like, it's very difficult to make good decisions and to be at your best if we're in reaction all the time. And most of us don't realize that that's what we're doing, because this is actually running the show. When you begin to meditate, you get more comfortable in the gap, right? So if I just slow right down, some people would be quite uncomfortable in the space. And some people are much more comfortable like this, blah, 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 like that. And I could just talk, and it depends who the listener is, but sometimes, right? And we want to play sport like that. Right? We want to play sport like that because that's when we make good decisions. That's when we read the game. We see behind us and around us. We can read others. Okay. And also we tend to play in a more balanced emotional place, because what I've seen with a lot of sports people, and this is all the way from the top level where I played at cricket all the way down to park cricket and park football, people play emotionally. Right? They play emotionally, and it is very difficult to be excellent at anything if emotions are running the show or if thoughts are running the show. Very difficult. Now, what we think is, if we don't think and feel, how are we going to play? Right? But I don't know if you've ever been in the zone. It's like you're not playing. It's like something's playing you, right? Because you let go. Meditation, the commitment to it, and it's a tough gig to meditate every day. It's a discipline. You get able to read things better, life. More than that, you realize you're not your emotions. So you can just watch anger come up, and you don't have to blow up all the time, right? Like, you should have seen me 10 years ago. I was an angry bastard, right? And anger now, everyone knows with anger, you just sort of like let anger out. Well, meditation goes, I can feel I've got a little bit of anger right now, and I'm just going to take a moment, right? Because the last thing we want to be doing is playing angrily. Some of you may feel that that's a good way to be, but I promise you, you'd play better if you could stay in the center. People try and meditate for too long, right? They think sitting down for an hour is meditation. I got given a really good rule early on in my meditation practice. Simon, pick an amount of time you can meditate for, right? So in the morning I go, I can do 10 minutes. And then the advice was halve it. Right? And then it's easy, because like someone who's overweight and goes to the gym, it's less important what they do in the gym, and it's more important that they just show up to the gym and create the habit So if you're a beginner and you want to start, it's more important that you just find somewhere to sit for now, and don't even try and meditate. Just sit still and just relax, right? And just be, and just sit there and be happy. No phones, no distractions. That's level 1 meditation. That's like a year, because most of us take no time to ourselves. Or as Mickey Flanagan says, doing proper fuck all. It's to just do proper fuck all. Like, that's meditation, right? Like, just find some space and go and do proper fuck all. Just sit there. Not none of this like fuck all on your phone. Proper old school fuck all. Just sit there like this. Like 5 minutes. You do that every day, twice or once, in 3 months, the change psychologically and emotionally is astounding. If you then play sport and have relationships and live from that place and keep practicing, everything starts to get better. Because that's what meditation does. It is the most powerful practice a person can do. There's nothing like it.
I've got 2 questions for you. Meditation, it's not really about shutting down your ego. It's about reshaping your ego into a more emotional state and literally thinking outside of your own boundaries.
Yeah, no, that's a really good way of looking at it. I mean, I think it's realizing that we're not our ego, right? Like, the ego is all the collection of thoughts that turn into a personality. And it's like, it's not even who we are, right? Like, the ego is what happens when we're under pressure. The ego is what happens when we want approval. The ego is what comes out when we want something or if we're afraid of something. Not to get too psychological, because it's tough to understand, but it's like the ego it's basically our personality, which can be changed. People think that their personality is set, but it's malleable. And when you meditate, you start to see, well, I'm not my anger. Anger's just an emotion, right? I'm the one watching my anger. And if you can create a space, you can choose a new emotion. And if you can respond instead of react, so what used to make you angry, you respond with kindness, then you become a different person. So the old ego of anger can be turned into kindness because you go, I don't want to be angry in this situation, but you can't make that decision unless there's space.
2 hours before a training session or a football match, what would you advise me to do?
Remember why you love the game. Relax. And as one of my coaches used to say to me, just remember that however the training session goes, it's going to be 2034 soon. Right? You say, Simon, it's going to be 2034 soon. What are you worried about? And here's the depressing thing. You could have the greatest training session of all time. It doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter, because it's going to be 2034 soon and no one gives a shit. The only person who gives a shit is you, and it's all going to be gone soon. One day you're going to be an old man with a big grey beard, right? And you're not going to remember that one crappy training session you did on a Wednesday 50 years ago, right? The Buddhists call it impermanence. We really, really believe that, like, what happens is, I mean, it'll go, and then you can have another training session and another one, right? But the chances of you having a good training session when you put so much pressure on it are minimal. The chances of you playing well, having a good training session when you're relaxed and you're in love with the game and you allow yourself to flow freely go much higher. The thing is to remember it's a game, and I see a lot of people put themselves under a lot of pressure, which is fine. But I see very few people who respond well to the amount of pressure they put themselves under. So the answer has to be relaxation and enjoyment and focus, not relaxation like it's setting an intention and knowing what you're going there to do. Maybe one thing, today I'm going to work on my passing, but being present, because if you're present, you play well. And seriously, it's a game, right? It's a game. Now, it's not a game. It's a religion. It's everything. I mean, cricket to me is not a game. It's older than, to me, it's the oldest friend I've ever had, right? Cricket is, but at the same time, results and performance and success and failure come and go. We want to have a good training session, but if you had 1,000 good training sessions in a row, you wouldn't learn anything. Yeah. Right. So we also need to, you just wouldn't learn anything. You have 500 good ones and 500 shit ones, you're probably going to become a much better footballer. And if you had 800 shit ones and 200 good ones, well, you've got more opportunities to grow because you failed more. And that's where the fear of failure stops people growing, because we're afraid of failure, we don't give ourselves the opportunity to screw up and learn. But failure, if I want to build a good bicep, I'm going to go and rip my biceps to shreds lifting a heavy weight. And then what they do is they rupture and then they repair stronger. And we're like little cells in a bicep, but people keep themselves safe. They want to play well all the time, which is fine. But you should be training under so much pressure that externally that you're not having you don't want to have a good training session. I coached for a long time, right? You want to have shit training sessions because it needs to be so tough that you're failing all the time. So it's like, how can I fail? How can I fail well and enjoy that? And then there's growth in that.